The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble corridors of Buckingham Palace as Princess Charlotte walked confidently toward the grand dining hall. At 9 years old, she carried herself with a poise that reminded everyone of her late great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. Her small but determined footsteps echoed through the hallway, while behind her, Captain James Morrison, her personal protection officer, maintained his usual respectful distance. Captain Morrison had served the royal family for over 15 years. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and an unwavering sense of duty. Unlike many others in the palace, he had developed a genuine fondness for Princess Charlotte. She was different from other royal children he had protected. She was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly mature for her age. More importantly, she treated everyone with respect, from the highest-ranking officials to the kitchen staff. The tension in the palace had been building for months. Ever since King Charles III's coronation, Queen Camilla had been working to establish new protocols and traditions. Many of these changes seemed designed to elevate her position and ensure proper recognition of her status as queen consort. Some palace staff whispered that she was still sensitive about her path to the throne, having been the other woman for so many years during Charles's marriage to Princess Diana. Princess Charlotte had noticed these changes too. She was young, but she wasn't naive. She had overheard conversations between her parents, Prince William and Princess Catherine, about the new expectations being placed on the family. Some of these expectations directly involved her and her brothers, Prince George and Prince Louis. On this particular morning, Princess Charlotte had been summoned to a formal breakfast with Queen Camilla. It was unusual for such a young royal to have solo meetings with the queen consort, but Camilla had insisted. She wanted to discuss proper royal behavior with Charlotte, according to the message delivered by her private secretary. As they approached the dining hall, Captain Morrison noticed the unusual number of staff members lingering in the corridor. Palace servants rarely gathered in groups during working hours, and their nervous glances suggested something was amiss. He had heard rumors from other protection officers about Queen Camilla's increasing demands for formal recognition from all family members, including the youngest royals. Princess Charlotte paused before the ornate doors of the dining hall. She straightened her shoulders and looked up at Captain Morrison. "Do you think she's going to ask me to do something I don't want to do?" she asked quietly. Captain Morrison knelt down to her level, his expression gentle but serious. "Your Royal Highness, you should always remember who you are and what you believe is right. Your great-grandmother taught your family that being royal means serving others, not demanding they serve you." The young princess nodded thoughtfully. She had loved Queen Elizabeth II dearly, and often thought about the lessons her great-grandmother had shared during their private tea times. Queen Elizabeth had always emphasized kindness, duty, and treating everyone with dignity. Inside the dining hall, Queen Camilla sat at the head of a long mahogany table. She was dressed impeccably in a navy blue suit, her hair perfectly styled, and her jewelry carefully chosen to reflect her status. The room was formal and somewhat intimidating, with its high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and portraits of previous monarchs watching from the walls. "Charlotte, dear, please come and sit down," Queen Camilla said, gesturing to a chair that had been positioned deliberately far from her own seat. The arrangement forced Charlotte to approach and acknowledge Camilla's position at the head of the table. Princess Charlotte walked forward with confidence, but she remained standing. "Good morning, Your Majesty," she said politely, offering a slight nod of acknowledgement rather than the deep curtsy that many expected. When greeting the queen consort, Queen Camilla's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Charlotte, I think we need to discuss proper protocol. As queen consort, I expect appropriate recognition from all members of the royal family, including the younger generation." "I understand, Your Majesty," Charlotte replied carefully. "My parents have taught me to show respect to everyone in the family." "Respect, yes, but there are specific traditions that must be observed," Camilla continued, her voice taking on a firmer tone. "When you greet me, a proper curtsy is required. It's not optional. It's a matter of protocol and showing proper deference to the crown." Princess Charlotte felt a flutter of discomfort in her stomach. She had been taught to curtsy to her grandfather, King Charles, because he was the sovereign, But something about being required to bow so formally to Queen Camilla felt different and wrong to her young mind. "I've always been taught that respect comes from the heart, not just from gestures," Charlotte said quietly, her voice steady despite her nervousness. Queen Camilla's expression hardened. "This isn't about feelings, Charlotte. This is about tradition and hierarchy. I am your step-grandmother and the queen consort. You will show proper deference." The room fell silent, except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantelpiece. Captain Morrison, standing by the door, watched the exchange with growing concern. He could see the discomfort in Princess Charlotte's posture and the determination in Queen Camilla's eyes. "I respect you as my step-grandmother," Charlotte said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't feel right about bowing to you in the same way I would to Grandpa. He's the king because of who he was born to be. You're queen because you married him." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Queen Camilla's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Several palace staff members who had been discreetly positioned nearby exchanged worried glances. "How dare you speak to me that way?" Camilla said, rising from her chair. "You're just a child who doesn't understand the complexity of royal duty. I will not tolerate this disrespect." Captain Morrison stepped forward slightly, his protective instincts kicking in. He could see that the situation was escalating beyond a simple disagreement about protocol. Princess Charlotte stood her ground, though her hands were trembling slightly. "I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I just think respect should be earned, not demanded. Great-grandmother always said that true royalty serves others. It doesn't make others serve it." Queen Camilla's anger was now visible to everyone in the room. "Your great-grandmother is gone, and things are different now. You will learn to show proper respect, or there will be consequences." The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Captain Morrison felt every muscle in his body tense. His primary duty was to protect Princess Charlotte, not just from physical harm but from any situation that might cause her distress or force her to act against her conscience. Princess Charlotte looked directly at Queen Camilla, her young face showing a maturity beyond her years. "I won't bow to someone who threatens me for having my own thoughts. That's not what being royal should mean." The standoff was complete. Queen Camilla stood at one end of the room, her authority challenged by a 9-year-old princess who refused to be intimidated. Princess Charlotte stood at the other end, small but resolute, backed by her personal protection officer, who was ready to support her decision. Captain Morrison knew that this moment would define not just this morning, but possibly the future relationships within the royal family. He also knew that his next actions would determine whether Princess Charlotte would be forced to compromise her principles or whether she would be protected in making her own choice. The tension in the room was palpable as three very different people prepared for what would become a defining moment in recent royal history. Captain Morrison stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between Princess Charlotte and Queen Camilla. His movement was subtle but deliberate, and everyone in the room understood its significance. "Your Majesty," he said in a calm, respectful voice. Perhaps this discussion would benefit from a brief pause. Queen Camilla's eyes flashed with fury as she realized that the protection officer was intervening. "Captain Morrison, you are overstepping your boundaries. This is a family matter, and your opinion is neither requested nor required." "With respect, Your Majesty, my duty is to protect Princess Charlotte's well-being in all situations," Morrison replied firmly. "That includes ensuring she's not placed in positions that cause her unnecessary distress." Princess Charlotte looked up at her guardian with gratitude and surprise. She had never seen an adult challenge Queen Camilla so directly, and she felt a surge of relief knowing that someone was willing to support her. "This is outrageous," Queen Camilla declared, her voice rising. "I am the queen consort, and I will not be undermined by palace staff. Captain Morrison, you are dismissed from this room immediately." Morrison remained exactly where he was. "I'm afraid I cannot comply with that request, Your Majesty. My orders come directly from His Royal Highness, Prince William, and I am not authorized to leave Princess Charlotte unsupervised during formal meetings." The truth was more complex than Morrison was revealing. While he did have standing orders to protect Charlotte, he was making a personal choice to interpret those orders in the broadest possible way. He could see that this wasn't just about protocol. It was about a powerful adult trying to force a child to submit against her conscience. Queen Camilla picked up a small silver bell from the table and rang it sharply. Within moments, her private secretary, Margaret Thornfield, appeared in the doorway. Margaret was a thin, efficient woman who had worked for Camilla for several years and was known for her unwavering loyalty to the Queen Consort. "Margaret, I want Captain Morrison removed from this room immediately, and I want Prince William contacted. His daughter needs to learn proper respect, and his staff are clearly not adequately trained." Margaret nodded and pulled out her phone, but Captain Morrison spoke before she could make any calls. "Mrs. Thornfield, I would respectfully suggest that you also contact Princess Catherine. As Princess Charlotte's mother, she should be informed of any formal discussions involving her daughter's behavior or protocol requirements." This suggestion clearly irritated Queen Camilla further. Princess Catherine had always maintained a diplomatic but distant relationship with her stepmother-in-law. While Catherine was unfailingly polite, it was well known that she had concerns about some of Camilla's approaches to royal life. "This situation does not require Catherine's involvement," Camilla said coldly. "This is about basic royal protocol, which Charlotte should have learned already." Princess Charlotte, who had been listening to this exchange between the adults, suddenly spoke up. "I think my mummy should know what's happening. And my daddy too." Her young voice cut through the tension, reminding everyone that at the center of this power struggle was a 9-year-old child who was being asked to make decisions that would affect her relationships with her family for years to come. Queen Camilla turned her attention back to Charlotte, her expression softening slightly in an attempt to appear more reasonable. "Charlotte, dear, let's try to resolve this without involving everyone in the family. All I'm asking for is a simple curtsy when you greet me. It's not such a difficult thing, is it?" Princess Charlotte considered this carefully. She was intelligent enough to understand that Queen Camilla was offering her a way out of the confrontation. A simple curtsy would end the immediate conflict and probably prevent a larger family crisis. But something deep inside Charlotte rebelled against the idea. It wasn't really about the curtsy itself. It was about being forced to show deference when she didn't feel it was genuinely deserved. Her great-grandmother had taught her that actions should come from authentic respect, not fear or obligation. "It is difficult for me," Charlotte said quietly but clearly, "because it would mean pretending to feel something I don't feel. Great-grandmother taught me that being honest is more important than being polite when the two things don't match." Captain Morrison felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. The young princess was showing remarkable integrity, but he knew that her stance would have consequences throughout the palace and possibly beyond. Queen Camilla's patience was clearly exhausted. "Your great-grandmother is dead, Charlotte, and I am very much alive. I am trying to maintain order and tradition in this family, and your defiance is unacceptable." The harshness of mentioning Queen Elizabeth's death in such a cold way shocked everyone in the room. Princess Charlotte's eyes filled with tears, not from fear but from sadness that someone could speak so dismissively about the person who had meant so much to her. Captain Morrison's jaw tightened visibly. "Your Majesty, I must respectfully request that this conversation be continued at a later time when Princess Charlotte's parents can be present." "You must respectfully request nothing," Queen Camilla snapped. "You are palace staff, and you will remember your place." At that moment, Margaret Thornfield returned to the room and whispered something in Queen Camilla's ear. The Queen Consort's expression changed, showing surprise and then frustration. "It appears," she said icily, "that Prince William is already aware of this meeting and is on his way here with Princess Catherine. Someone has been very busy making phone calls." Captain Morrison maintained his neutral expression, but internally he felt relieved. He had indeed sent a discreet message to his supervisor, who had immediate contact with Prince William's private office. It was a calculated risk, but one he felt was necessary to protect Princess Charlotte. Princess Charlotte wiped away her tears and straightened her shoulders again. Knowing that her parents were coming gave her renewed confidence. "I'm glad they're coming," she said. "I want them to know that I tried to be respectful, but I won't be forced to do things that feel wrong to me." Queen Camilla sat back down in her chair. clearly strategizing for the arrival of Prince William and Princess Catherine. She knew that her position as queen consort gave her significant authority, but she also knew that William and Catherine were extremely protective of their children's well-being. "Very well," she said with forced calm. "We'll wait for your parents. But Charlotte, you should understand that this conversation is far from over. There are expectations that come with being a royal, and you cannot simply ignore them because you don't like them." Captain Morrison remained standing between Charlotte and the queen consort, his presence a quiet but powerful statement of protection. He knew that his career might be in jeopardy depending on how the next few minutes unfolded. But he was certain that protecting Princess Charlotte's right to make her own moral choices was worth the risk. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as they waited. Princess Charlotte sat down in a chair near Captain Morrison, her young mind processing everything that had happened. She was learning that being royal wasn't just about ceremonies and pretty dresses. It was about navigating complex relationships and power dynamics that even adults sometimes handled poorly. Outside in the corridor, the sound of approaching footsteps suggested that Prince William and Princess Catherine were arriving. The real confrontation was about to begin, and everyone in the room knew that the outcome would set important precedents for how the royal family would function in the years to come. Princess Charlotte looked up at Captain Morrison and whispered, "Thank you for staying with me." He nodded slightly, his expression warm but focused. "Always, Your Royal Highness, always." The ornate doors of the dining hall opened with a soft but authoritative sound as Prince William and Princess Catherine entered together. Their expressions were serious but controlled, showing the diplomatic composure they had perfected over years of public service. Behind them walked Sir David Richardson, Prince William's private secretary, whose presence indicated that this situation was being treated as a formal royal matter. Princess Charlotte immediately rose from her chair and ran to her parents. Princess Catherine knelt down and embraced her daughter, while Prince William placed a protective hand on Charlotte's shoulder. The family tableau was striking. 3 generations of royalty united in support of each other. Queen Camilla remained seated at the head of the table, her posture rigid with barely contained frustration. She had hoped to resolve the situation before William and Catherine arrived, but now she faced the prospect of defending her actions to Charlotte's parents. "William, Catherine," she said with forced pleasantness, "I'm glad you could join us. Charlotte and I were having a discussion about proper royal protocol." Prince William's expression was carefully neutral, but those who knew him well could see the controlled anger in his eyes. "So we understand," he replied evenly. "We also understand that Charlotte became quite upset during this discussion. Children sometimes become emotional when they're asked to grow up and accept responsibility." Queen Camilla replied, "Charlotte is at an age where she needs to understand her role and the respect due to senior members of the royal family." Princess Catherine, still kneeling beside Charlotte, spoke for the first time. "We've always taught our children to show respect to everyone in the family, but we've also taught them that respect is earned through kindness and example, not demanded through protocol." The subtle rebuke was clear to everyone in the room. Captain Morrison remained at attention nearby, ready to provide his account of events if required. Prince William looked directly at Queen Camilla. "We were told that Charlotte was asked to curtsy to you as a matter of protocol, and that when she expressed discomfort with this requirement, the conversation became quite heated." "The conversation became heated because your daughter was openly defiant and disrespectful," Queen Camilla responded, her diplomatic mask beginning to slip. "She questioned my position and refused to acknowledge proper hierarchy within the family." Princess Charlotte looked up at her father with wide, earnest eyes. "Daddy, I tried to be polite, but I didn't think it was right to bow to someone just because they told me to. You and Mummy taught me that our actions should match our feelings, and that being royal means serving people, not making them serve us." Prince William's expression softened as he looked at his daughter, then hardened as he turned back to Queen Camilla. "Charlotte is 9 years old. If there are protocol requirements you feel are necessary, they should be discussed with Catherine and me first, not imposed on our children during private meetings." "I am the queen consort," Camilla replied, her voice rising slightly. "I should not need permission to discuss royal expectations with family members." "You are the queen consort," Princess Catherine agreed, standing to face Camilla directly. "But Charlotte is our daughter. Any expectations placed on her will be decided by William and me, in consultation with His Majesty if necessary." The mention of King Charles was strategic. While Camilla held significant influence with her husband, both William and Catherine knew that Charles would be reluctant to support any action that caused distress to his beloved granddaughter. Queen Camilla seemed to realize that her position was becoming increasingly isolated. This is about more than just Charlotte. This is about maintaining proper order and respect within the royal family. If the younger generation is allowed to question authority whenever they feel like it, where will it end? Captain Morrison finally spoke, his voice respectful but firm. "Your Majesty, if I may." I observed the entire conversation. Princess Charlotte was consistently polite and respectful in her words. She simply expressed her personal feelings about the courtesy requirement and explained her reasoning. Queen Camilla turned on him with renewed anger. "Captain Morrison, you have overstepped your authority repeatedly this morning. Your job is to provide protection, not to participate in family discussions or offer commentary on royal protocol." Prince William stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of his future kingship. Captain Morrison was doing exactly what we expect of him, protecting our daughter's well-being in all circumstances. His actions this morning have been exemplary, and he has our full support. The declaration was unambiguous. Prince William was not only defending his daughter but also the protection officer who had stood up for her. The message was clear to everyone present. Attempts to force Charlotte into uncomfortable situations would not be tolerated. Sir David Richardson, who had been quietly observing from near the door, cleared his throat gently. "Your Majesty, Your Royal Highnesses, perhaps this would be an appropriate time to establish clear guidelines for family interactions going forward." His diplomatic suggestion offered everyone a way to save face while moving toward a resolution. Princess Catherine looked at Charlotte, then back at Queen Camilla. "We would welcome a conversation about family expectations, but it should involve all the parents and be focused on what's best for the children, not what makes the adults feel most comfortable." Queen Camilla realized that she was facing united opposition from Prince William and Princess Catherine, supported by their staff and implicitly backed by the values taught by Queen Elizabeth II. Her attempt to establish dominance over the younger generation had backfired completely. "Fine," she said with barely concealed frustration. "But I want it understood that this family cannot function with everyone making their own rules about protocol and respect." Prince William nodded thoughtfully. "We agree that the family needs clear expectations, but those expectations should be based on kindness, mutual respect, and age-appropriate requirements. 9-year-old children should not be subjected to formal protocol demands during private family interactions." Princess Charlotte, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, suddenly spoke up again. "Can I say something?" All the adults turned to look at her, and Princess Catherine nodded encouragingly. "I do respect you as part of our family," Charlotte said, looking directly at Queen Camilla. "And I would be happy to curtsy to you at formal events where everyone does it. But when we're just having breakfast or talking together, I'd rather just be nice to each other like a real family." The simple wisdom of a 9-year-old cut through all the complex adult negotiations. Princess Charlotte had found a compromise that acknowledged Queen Camilla's position while maintaining her own dignity and principles. Queen Camilla looked surprised by the offer. It wasn't the complete capitulation she had wanted, but it was a reasonable middle ground that gave her the formal recognition she craved while respecting Charlotte's comfort level. Prince William smiled proudly at his daughter. "That sounds like a very mature and fair solution." Princess Catherine added, "Charlotte has always been good at finding ways for everyone to feel respected and comfortable." Captain Morrison felt a surge of relief and pride. The young princess he protected had not only stood up for her principles but had also found a way to resolve the conflict that preserved everyone's dignity. Queen Camilla, realizing that this was probably the best outcome she could achieve, nodded slowly. "That would be acceptable. Formal protocols for formal occasions, and family warmth for family times." Sir David Richardson stepped forward with his tablet. "Shall I draft some guidelines based on this discussion? It might help prevent similar misunderstandings in the future." Everyone agreed, and the tension in the room began to dissipate. Princess Charlotte had learned valuable lessons about standing up for herself while still treating others with kindness. Queen Camilla had learned that respect cannot be demanded but must be earned. And Captain Morrison had learned that sometimes protecting someone means standing up to authority, even when it's risky. As the family began to leave the dining hall together, Princess Charlotte looked back at Captain Morrison and gave him a small smile. She knew that his support had made all the difference in helping her stay true to herself, while finding a solution that worked for everyone. The palace corridors seemed less tense as they walked toward the exit, and the staff members they passed looked relieved that the crisis had been resolved peacefully. Word would spread quickly through the palace that Princess Charlotte had stood her ground with grace and that her protection officer had proven his loyalty beyond question. In the end, the confrontation had strengthened rather than damaged the relationships that mattered most. Between Charlotte and her parents, between the family and their trusted staff, and between the younger and older generations of royals who would need to work together for years to come.